Good evening, everyone. I will go over a little bit of Pesach, the Kitzer, the important halachos, and then we'll have some time in Me'ez Hashem for question and answers. If people have some questions, we'll address that. But first, let me start just to go over a little bit of Nyonim Nechitzim of Pesach. First, Nikidus, where you have to emphasize to clean for Pesach, then how to take care of your kitchen, and we'll see further time where we go from there. First of all, we know that there is a Rosh, which the Rosh writes. I don't want to elaborate on all the halachas to clean Pesach, because Yisroel Kedoshim Hem. Yisroel are holy people, and they're doing much more than they need to do, and so therefore I'm not going to elaborate. And the Drosh says that they clean even a mashi chumatz, which is on the walls, and therefore I don't want to elaborate where and what, because they're doing it anyway. So what does it mean, Yisroel Kedoshim? What does go in what does go in Yisroel Kedoshim, and what doesn't go in Yisroel Kedoshim? For instance, do you have to scrape and clean your ceiling? If there's a part of Yisroel Kedoshim, do you have to clean all the walls? Do you have to clean your chandelier or the lights? What does go in Yisroel Kedoshim and what doesn't go? So first we have to know like this. Chazal, you are not over bal yura bal yemutza of having chumatz only when it's a kezayis chumatz, or if it is less than kezayis but it is edible, it is a thing which is a person will eat. For instance, a Cheerios, a pretzel. So even if it's less than a kezayis, people will eat it. So therefore, when you have to clean a house, you have to make sure that chometz less than a kezayis, which is edible, should be cleaned. If it is a tiny crumb and it's it's dirty, nobody's going to pick up and eat it, and therefore mitzad halucha you don't have to clean it. But of them comes in Yisroel Kedoshim, we clean everything for Pesach. But it depends, things which is come in connection with food, or things which do not come in connection with food. So first of all, we have to know like this: a thing which has to come in common with food, we have to make sure to clean it very well. A thing which does not come in connection with food, then you can be more lenient. So, according to us, which the minig is that we sell chumatz gomer. Some chassidim do not sell chumatz gomer, real chumatz, and I would say even most chassidim do not sell chumatz gomer. But there are some other chassidim also, which are Ropshitz and sons, which they do sell chumatz gomer. But in any case, for us is relevant. Rabbi Sayin Nisi'eni was selling chumatz gomer. As we see, the Tzemach Tzedek, when he was older, they used to sell chumatz. He should have what he eat matzi Pesach. And that's the main thing we see in the Shtar Mechidus chumatz of the Rebbe Shmusa and the Rebbe Rashab, of our Rebbe. We see that they used to sell chumatz gomer. So, anywhere, anything which we are going to sell for the goy, you don't have to clean, because our goy takes everything. So if a person has a Pesach kitchen and he doesn't use his chumatz kitchen, he just has to seal off that room, lock it, put on a tape, nimke legoy, and that's about it. You don't need to do more than that. The same will go pots and pans or anything which you have in your house, which basically you are going to sell for the goy. You don't need to do anything. And that goes in if you have a Pesach kitchen, you have a Pesach stove, you don't use your stove, you don't use your microwave. If you have a separate refrigerator for Pesach, so all these other things which is chomazik, you just sell, you seal it off, you write nimke lagoy, and you don't have to do anything. The same will go toys, children's toys, or clothing, which you know you're not going to use during Pesach. Lock up that cabinet, write it's nimke lagoy, and finished. It's gone. Things which come in contact with food directly, for instance, sidirim or zmiras, you should sell for the goy. You should have a Pesach siddur, because it's almost impossible. It should be clean, and you shouldn't have a mashich hummus. Because you have to remember, even though I said before that apitoyre you're not over about Yerubal Yimutz, only have a gzais hummus, but if you eat a mashich hummus, that's uzi ben atoyre. So a mashich hummus, when you eat the reg, that's a problem. So anything which comes in contact with direct food, then you have to make sure, if you have, you should put it away and have separate zmira, separate benches, separate sidurim. If you don't wash it all year round, the siddur, it shouldn't be on the table by chumatz. The same goes also to a place which you don't put in chumatz. You don't care for an attic. The same will also go into a attic. If somebody has an attic or a boiler room, whatever he has, which he doesn't go in over there with chomatz, he doesn't have to do. He has to make it. Mukim sha'ayim achis v'chomatz, you don't have to do. The same will also go places which he doesn't come across chomatz at all. For instance, when the Rosh says Shlukadoshmi and you wash the wall, that does not mean in all the bedrooms you have to wash the wall and the ceiling. It doesn't come across with chomatz. If it is a room which is basically for a kitchen, a dining room, yes, over there you should wash the wall till where the hands reach. You don't have to wash more than the hand reaches. If you have children, small children, then okay, you want to be a machbar in the bedrooms to wash because they could bring in chumatz, fine. But again, anything which doesn't come in with chumatz, or you sell it for the goy, you don't have to make. What do you have to make good? If you don't have a Pesach koch, then you have to make your kitchen very well. The dinet has to be made very well. The tables, the chairs, all these things has to be made very well. But again, if it's a thing which you cannot reach, you cannot reach it. For instance, I'll tell you a story. A lady tells me that she has upholstery on the chair, and over there's some cracks in the plastic, and she sees some kind of crumbs inside in the chair, in the plastic. Does she have to rip open the plastic, the upholstery, take off the upholstery? I said, no, you don't need, because you don't have access to it. Or for instance, a person sees a tiny piece of chomatz in his radiator, which he doesn't have a way to take it out. Or sometimes even in the stoves, there's I don't know if today's day there's such a thing, but I still had such a stove not too long ago, that there was a plastic which where the clock for the oven was, it was a tiny hole over there where the knob of the watch you have to set, and over there if something falls in, you cannot take it off. You don't take it off, you don't have to do anything. Yes, chimra, that you should pour in a little bit of bleach or something which is poigim the chomatz. But again, a thing which you cannot reach, you don't have to dismantle a radiator, you don't have to dismantle the chairs. You make very good the chairs wherever your hand reaches, and wherever you don't reach, you don't have to do anything. If you see it and you want to put in a little bit of detergent, you should make polga bleach, that's fine. But again, walls in the kitchen, walls in the diner, that has to be very well done. The dining room has to be very well done. The dining table does not even need to be kasher, because you don't eat over there. If you don't eat only with a tablecloth, so just you have to wash it good, and you are going to use it also with a tablecloth on Pesach. You don't have to kasher it. a very thing which is very important to know is that toys from a child, Legos, blocks, if you leave it open for Pesach, you have to clean it very well. Because over there could be chumas, because the children could eat there. The easiest way, if you want to use it, you just put it in a basket, in a soft basket, you put it in the wash machine, and you wash it. That's the easiest way if it's plastic. But if you don't want to go through this hassle, so you buy some toys just for Pesach, which we do. We have special Pesach toys, which when the Einiklach come, then they can use that, because it is a thing which you have to make very well. And the same will be also clothing. Clothing which the children will use, you have to make sure it's cleaned, and basically you should do it during the day by a window. If not, you'll have to make b'dikas chometz in all the pockets, because make it you have to make chometz, b'dikas chometz when you clean on the pockets which you're going to use. But it's a big hassle to make b'dikas chometz all the clothing. So therefore, when you clean it by a window or on a porch, and then that will be considered that you checked it also la'or hayoim. A marpesa, that means a porch, and also your backyard, you have to make sure before Pesach there isn't a chometz ba'an. Your garbage enclosure has to be also make sure that there isn't chometz kazayis, which is clean. And the most important thing is your car has to be cleaned very well. If you don't want to do it, just sell it. But if you want to use it, then you have to clean it good. Now, a couple of things which people have, things that the misconception, and it's not true. First of all, people have a tendency that you have an opened salt or opened sugar or opened cocoa, they throw it out. There's no reason for it. If it's opened, you don't use it, even if it's kosher Pesach, because it was opened and you didn't have in mind to use it for Pesach, so it might be some chometz in yonam, but you don't need to throw it away. So, put it at a side in a place where you don't need to use it. You won't use it, and you keep it till after Pesach. Kidneys, you don't need to sell. You don't eat kidneys, as the minig Ashkenaz is, but you don't have to sell it. So a thing which you don't sell, you don't have to. There's no point to sell. When it comes to medication is very important like this. If a person needs to take medication, he should take medication. And if a person needs to take medication for his heart or other things which is shalaf pekich nefesh, even if he knows that he has chometz and he cannot supplement it with the permission of a doctor with something else, he should take the medication as regular. Because taking medication which doesn't have a good taste in Pesach, which has chometz, is not a big isur. And if you need it for chaya nefesh, you have to take it. And I cannot stress it enough, because people like to be from, and there's a lot of problems with it. So that's medication which you need to take. I would say most of the medication are not chometz. But again, you can look it up. If it has chometz, you have to ask a marirua and your doctor if you need to take it, or you could go by without that, or you could supplement it with something else which doesn't have chometz. When it comes to vitamins, we don't take vitamins because all the vitamins has kidneys, and therefore if a person takes vitamins only because he wants to strengthen his health, you don't take it all Pesach. There are people which take vitamins which they have to take. It's mamash for their health. If not, they're going to become sick. And the only problem is kidneys. Then it's something else. We could be more lenient because it's only kidneys. It's not chometz. And therefore, he could use it. But again, it's kedai to look up the books. Which one has kidneys, which one has chometz. Baruch Hashem, today's day, it is very, very clear in the books. Blumenkrantz or the OU or the other books which they have. CRC from Chicago. Which you look up which one. But again, if it's a medication which you have to take, and you don't have permission from the doctor to change with something else, you need to take it, and don't be from on it. All detergents you could use on Pesach. All things which you use for cleaning the floor, cleaning your clothing, you don't need to look if it has chometz or not. First of all, it doesn't have, and if it doesn't have some, it's pugam, it's nivgam, you can use it. The same will go also to shampoo and soap. But shampoo and soap, there is mukim lahachmer. Yes, mukim lahachmer to use some which doesn't have chometz. That means to look it up in the book. But again, overall, since mitzat halucha, it's no problem to use all of them on nifgam. Yes, mukim lahachmer because some gewisse poiskam which says there's an Indian, but again, it's mitter to use shampoo and soap, even if you might have alcohol chometz, and you could use it on Pesach. Svuram you have to make good. So if a person does not wash all year round his books when he's by the table, he should only use a sefer which he knows that it's clean. That means he went through and checked it, and you have to check it according to Halucha, kamat, page by page. Therefore, you kedai to have Pesach digas forum which you need, or that specific sefer which you want to use on Pesach, clean it very well, and then you can use it. All other svorim, do not use it, and there is problems with svorim because you remember that svorim you use by the table. I'm talking with svorim people. For instance, me, I have a lot of svorim, therefore I don't use all year round svorim right next to food, so I have no issue. I don't have to make it. But if people do not wash during the Shabbos Seder and takes out the Kitasichas because he wants to look, so he might take out the same value look at Kitasichas, and he might have a crumb of chometz and fall into the food. So therefore, except if he's makbad not to eat Pesach, he's not going to use it on the table which comes in contact with food, and after using it, he will wash his hands and clean the table where he is, he could use it. But otherwise, svarim is a big problem. There are some poskim which say, all the svarim you have to or clean, page by page, or sell it for the goy. We don't have to be that machmar, but again, you have to be very careful about regarding svarim. A very important note. People have older children, and people have goites. You can rely on the older children when they make Pesach. You don't have to be on top of their shoulders and check if they made it good. If you want to, the first time, look it over a little bit, fine. Also, for the goites, you should look over, because sometimes they're more important checking cleanliness, the chometz. But be'ikar adin, you have a child, if you found an adult which is over bas mitzvah, she has an amonas that she cleaned it well, and as long as you don't see any problems, you could rely on them. And I want to stress it because I know a lot of parents do not trust their children, and they make a lot of hassles for themselves when they clean for Pesach. Another thing, if a person cleans something for Pesach, a very important note, person cleans something for Pesach, and then he realizes he found something in that room. He found a piece of chometz, for instance. He does not have to clean the room all over again. He does not have to clean the room all over again. He should take out that chometz which he found, and k'miv, by b'dikas chometz, the husband will look around and see what he needs to do, and make a proper b'dikas chometz. So let's go a little bit how to clean and kasher a kitchen if a person does not have a Pesach kitchen. I think that most people in Kingston do not have Pesach kitchens. Am I correct? I think so, because it's more older houses. It's not Jewish built. So let's go through the things which we need to know. The Torah writes an interesting note that we see in Parshas Tzav, this week's Parsha, or Parshas Matzoira, is always before Pesach. In a regular year, Parshas Tzav is before Pesach. In a year which is a Iber Yur, Meiberes, it is before Matzoira. And in these two Parshas, the Torah writes of Agola's Kailam. Parshas Tzav, we're going to learn Klecheres Yeshuva. Parshas Matzoira, when it comes to Matzoira, also the Torah writes, because it's a remes that before Pesach you have the kasher. And I know people, they are makbat, although they have a Pesach kitchen, they still try to kasher some stuff in order the children to see that for Pesach you have to kasher. So the people are makbat the kasher, even for the silverware which you go on the table if you don't have special Pesach silverware, and it's a becher, and etc. That's the minig Yisroel. If you can, something to kasher that you should go into their mind that before Pesach you kasher. Okay, the first klal we have to know that in Hilchos Agala there's a halacha Kabbalah kach poltoi. The way how he absorbs the chumash, this is the way how you have to take out the chumash. So if a thing got absorbed through fire, an oven, a toaster, a grill, you have to take it out through fire. Heat from fire. If a thing got absorbed by water, by liquid, that of klirishin, then that means klirishin means a kli which is on the fire. You have to take it out also of hot water, which is boiled by fire. That means klirishin. If you got absorbed by kli shiny, you could take it out through kli shiny also. And if it's cold, you don't have to only clean it, you don't have to kasher it at all. The taking out a thing by fire is called libun. Taking out a thing by dipping in hot water, if it is klirishin, klishayni, iri klirishin, it's called hagula. So in libun we have two things. There is such thing as called libun chumer, and a thing which is called libun kal. Libun chumer means you have to burn it, put it on fire, as long as netzitzen nitzen. This is the Losh of Shulchan Aruch. Sparks are coming out from that piece. In our world, you ain't going to get such a thing. There is no such a thing that you're going to have by putting on your stovetop or an oven. It should come to a point you're going to see netzitzen nitzen. So some say it means, why? Because our metal is a different metal than once upon a time. It depends how much air, how much space there is in the metal. It depends how you manufacture the metal. So basically, some will say that the way how to check it is if it's boiled and you knock with a hammer on it, you're going to see a spark, that's already in the tzitz. When it comes to degrees, how much it is, the poskim say it is about libun chumer is about 850 to 900 degrees. That's libun chumer. Then there's such thing as libun kal. Libun kal is about 550. That's when the other side, if you burn something, a metal, and the other side, the outside side, is going to be a Yatzolos boy. That means outside is going to be 160 Fahrenheit. Then that's called libun kal. When do you use libun gumer? When do you use libun kal? Libun gumer you have to use always when something got absorbed, the isur, or even chumash is called isur in our terms. If it got absorbed when it's very hot, when it's by fire, you will have to have libun gumer. If it's less than that, you cannot use it. When can you use libun kal? When it comes, you want to cash something from melichiks to fleishiks, or a thing which you want to have a gula, you could cash it through a gula, but you cannot cash it because it has grooves, and then you can't clean it. Then you put it on the fire, or you have a blowtorch, and libun kal will be enough. So again, a thing which is which went in by fire, you have to have libun gumer. A thing which went in by klirishin, you have to have klirishin. You cannot pour water, a thing which got absorbed by a pot, which got absorbed chumash by water. It's called you got a blia of klirishin. You cannot kasher it by pouring on top water. Why? Because when you pour it on top water, it's called iri klirishin. And what's the problem with iri klirishin? Iri klirishin is not as hot as a klirishin. Why? Because klirishin has the fanas, has the walls. Iri, when you pour it, basically it doesn't have walls to keep the heat. So it's much less cold, hot than a klirishin. And therefore, when you learn the Shabbos, you know, klirishin, iri klirishin, klishayni, when you want to pour hot water on a coffee. So a thing which got a blia by klirishin, you could not pour on it hot water, it should be considered hagala. Therefore, when you have countertops, or you have a stovetop, or a sink, which got a blia, direct blia, not through ili, although most of the time on a countertop or on a table you are not going to have a blia through clearation, because most of the time the soup will spill. But there is a time when you take out a toast from toaster, or maybe a hot pizza which sticks out from the plate and it touches the table, and that's already a thing which we have, that's called a clearation already. Yeah, because gedur gish, even if it is out from the oven, it is still considered clearation. And when you put it on the table, you take a toast, put it on the table absorbed by clearation. Now if you want to kasher your table and you pour hot water, you're kashering it only with the iri, not with the clearation. Therefore, when you kasher a table, you have to use a stone. What does the stone do? The stone makes that, since we mentioned before, iri has a problem, doesn't have the hot water, the walls that keeps it warm. When you pour it on top of the stone, the water comes on the table when it's right next to the stone, so the water is getting boiled constantly through the stone. And that's the concept of Eva Melumen. Eva Melumen means a stone which was boiled on a fire till it gets piping hot, boiling hot, and then you can use it. This is how you kasher it. So when it comes a tabletop or a countertop, which you can kasher, which is ceramic, marble, quartz, all these things which you could kasher, after you clean it very well, and you wait 24 hours, as in we're going to mention in a minute why you need 24 hours, but you wait 24 hours before you're using it, after you stopped using it, you take a stone, and Baruch Hashem, thank Hashem that He gave creativity for the company which is called Ner Mitzvah, which they created a stone in a special cage with a handle, and a picture, all this, a whole set which you could kasher very easy. And you keep the stone right next to your table, right next to your countertop, you pour it on top, and you make sure that the water goes all over on every inch of the table, then you pour cold water, and then your tabletop and your countertop is fine to use during the Pesach, if it's kashered well, even without any cover. It is preferred to have some cover on it, that means a plastic tablecloth, or a paper, even when you kasher it, but it's not important, be'etzem. V'ikaradin, it's not important because you kasher it with the Evim Malim. Why do you need 24 hours? And that's very important to know all year round. Whenever you want to kasher something, you need 24 hours after you use it. Why? Because if you have a blia which went into a pot, for instance, and the pot was used, it went in 6 hours ago. Now you're going to kasher now the water, the pot with water. The blia of the pot is going to come out from the walls of the pot, and it's going to go into the water. What happens afterwards? The water has a blia of chometz. It doesn't have 60, or it's a bayoima. It goes back into the wall of the pot. So nothing happened. Nothing happened. It's still chometz. You still have a blia of chometz because it went out into the water, and the water gave it in back into the walls. So therefore, the person will say there's two options. One option is you should have 60 times water more than you have in the pot, which basically is almost impossible. It's possible if you have a very big pot and you want to kasher other utensils or keilah which is small. But in order not to see if you have 60 or not, the person can say that it should be eine bayoima. It should go through 24 hours from when you used it. Since it was eine bayoima, the taste after 24 hours in a pot gets pugam. It's not a fresh taste. And therefore, a pugam diga taste which goes into a kahil when it's pugam doesn't aser. So it's eine bayoima, it goes out into the water, even though it doesn't have 60, and it goes back, the taste goes back into the wall, but it's a pugam digitam, and you have no problem. And therefore, this is the best way. When you have during the year, people have problems. They found a utensil, a fleischige utensil, a milchige sink, or vice versa, or they used a fleischige knife with a milchige onion, and you have to kasher it. The easiest thing is you wait 24 hours. And you kasher it, you don't put it away for Pesach because the pasuk say you cannot put it away. You might come, achshash, you're going to use it. but you take a can from corn and you boil it. You dip into the utensil into that can, since it's Eina B'yoyma, and you can do it to a couple of utensils, and it's kasher, no problem. So that's why we need there should be Eina B'yoyma. But that's only when it comes to hagula. Why? Because hagula takes out the blia from the pot into the water, and if it's B'yoyma, it goes back. When it comes to libon doesn't work like that. Libon means that the heatness burns out the flavor and the taste which is in the pot. So therefore, if it burns it out, I don't care if it's B'yoyma. It doesn't come out. Therefore, when it comes to libon, you don't need to wait 24 hours. You don't need to be Eina B'yoyma, and you can cash it like that. Good. You cash it only with water. You cannot cash it with other kind of liquids. Although, it's probably you know that b'shas chag you'll use other liquids. For instance, you're going to use it when we rely on that. It's when you kasher a plant, a non-kosher chocolate. When you kasher that, then you're going to use, or for milchiks to make part of a chocolate, then you use chocolate to kasher it, because you cannot use water in such a machine. It kills the chocolate. So then they boil up chocolate till it's piping hot, and then they throw away the first batch. And this is how they kasher it, but that's about the avid. And therefore there are some companies which might have separate lines for parve and melechiks, but in any case, but the avid we rely on that. But regularly we don't rely on hagula only with water. Also, hagula has to be with water and not with steam. Nowadays, the last couple of years, we have machines which is a steamer. A steamer is very good to make clean, but it's nothing for hagula. Hagula has to be dipped into water which is piping hot, which is boiling, and it's mala babiyas, as Alter Rebbe writes. It has to be bubbled, has to bubble. And therefore, when you kasher a couple of utensils each other right after each other, it will stop boiling. You have to stop kashering, cover it again, let it boil up again, left kashering. Okay, so let's go a little bit to the kitchen and see how do we clean the things, the stuff, the sink, the oven, etc., how to kasher that. So, as we mentioned before, the dining room table, you just clean good and you cover it and you don't have to do anything. The countertops and the kitchen table, as I mentioned before, if it is from marble, if it is from granite, stone, you could kasher it because the halacha is klei eitzim could be kashered. If it is from mica, we have a big machlokes achronim, if it's plastic, it could be kashered. Some hold that it could be kashered, some poskim hold it could not be kashered. So therefore, what do we do usually? We kasher it also with an even malibim, with a stone, but you make sure to cover it at least once. Because if, according to the poskim, of that it's not plastic cannot be kashered, we want to also go according to them, and we cover it. If you cover the tables very well twice, double cover, then you don't have to kasher it at all. You can use it regularly, even for hot. Because the chomutz which is in the table, which will come out and go into the first keli, is a not banat, and if not banat, we have no issue if it's well covered. So therefore, the Chassam Sofer writes that you should have two covers, because shloisha gimel, even though not banat we are machmer, but gimel nois and tam we are not machmer. So therefore, if a person takes his counter table and he doesn't want to kasher it, and he covers it twice properly, good, that it shouldn't have holes, it shouldn't get ripped, then you don't need to even kasher it. Meaning this rule is that you kasher it and you cover it, but again, you don't need to do it since you cover it very well twice. The sink, how do you kasher your sink? Now the sink depends if it is a formica sink, which you cannot kasher at all, because it goes into the category of klei, or if it's that means ceramic sink. Ceramic sink is klei, and if it's a metal sink. A metal sink is a klei basil you can kasher. A ceramic sink you cannot kasher, and you cannot use it in Pesach only after you're going to kasher it with an malibim and put in an insert. Putting in an insert inside, as you know, there's such, you could buy nice inserts. Only through that you could use. If it is a metal one, you can use it without an insert. Kemivim tuvu ulav bruch, if somebody uses it with an insert too. But you could kasher it regularly. How do you kasher it? Again, you don't use the sink 24 hours. You boil a stone, you boil water, and you go pour in water, hot water with the stone. From the bottom, you start from the bottom all the way, go up till the top. And this is how you go through the whole sink. Very well all over. Then the faucet, you have to also kasher. Now, if you have a faucet which you can schlep out, you know, with the new ones, then you can just schlep it out and dip it into a pot which is on the stove. It's clear addition, that's the best thing. The strainer, the filter, you just take off and you buy a new one, $1.50. And the faucet again, you dip in. If you don't have this one which you schlep out, you have to use an even malibim and pour on top water. And this is how you kasher that. Then you make sure to pour into the drain, Mr. Plumber, or all this kind of sharp things which you use to unclog a sewer. Then you pour it in order that you should be able to clean if there is some kind of be'en. Because a lot of times in the sink inside there's be'en, hummus, and you don't want that the hot water Pesach which connects it to the hummus. So therefore you pour in, Mr. Plumber. The best thing will be if you leave it inside for a while, and then you flush it, and then the kitchen, the sink is kasher. Again, if you want to put in an insert, it's a mala, but you don't need to if it's a metal sink. So now let's go to the stovetop. Stovetop has three parts. Stovetop has the grates, the burners, and the stovetop itself. The burners you have to clean good and open up the fire for 20 minutes. It should burn out if there is something, and you're good to go. The grates is a little bit more difficult because over there the Alter Rebbe is very machmar on it. It's called chatzuva. The Alter Rebbe is machmar that it's a big problem. The Mishnah is Michael over here in some kind of cases, but the Alter Rebbe is machmar, and we are Chabad Hasidim. We have to go to the Alter Rebbe's Pesukim. So the way to do it is either you take a blech, a Shabbos blech, you put it on top of the stove, you put on the highest level all the flames, and automatically it burns itself out. You leave it for 20 minutes, burning it good, 20, half an hour, and then it is basically fine. If you want, you could, if you have a self-cleaning oven, you could put it into self-cleaning oven and do a cycle on the highest level. That would also be good. That's the grates. The stovetop, it depends if you take it off, which once upon a time most of the stuff you could be able to take off. Today's day is most of them you cannot take off. If you can take it off, you take it outside in the porch, and you cash it with a stone, you pour on it, and then you can use it like this. But if you cannot take it off, you cannot cash it with a stone and hot water, because you're going to kill the whole stovetop. So therefore you should cover it twice, cover it well twice, and you're good to go like this. If it's covered, as I mentioned before, whenever it's covered twice, you have no problem. The knobs, you just make sure to clean very well, or if you could buy new knobs of Adagit, because that's constantly touched with fatty hands, but if you clean it good, it's not a problem what to use it. Stoves, ovens. If a person has a self-cleaning oven, Lanias Dati, and according to, I would say, Ribeke Kilaf Poiskim, if it is a full self-cleaning oven, and it goes up to 900 degrees, which at least it was still a year or two, it was like that. I don't know, I heard that lately came out a new stove which doesn't go that high, but again, if it is a self-cleaning oven which makes it a good cycle of 4 or 5 hours, 900 degrees, you make the cycle, and the oven is good to go as it is. Kedai, that the shelf you should cover. Or you should have a new one, or you should cover it with silver foil and make some holes, because it should push it bake better. And you should cover the door, the glass, the gasket, you should cover with silver foil, because that, it is an issue if glass, they will remove paskin's glass, and not necessarily you could be able to cash it on Pesach, so therefore you try to cover it with a silver foil, with also in the gaskets, and you're good to go. If it is, why do we allow a self-cleaning oven to be used cash like this? Because it goes up limbachumar till 900 jugi, and also the Alter Rebbe wants you should have an element inside. That means you should have, which has the option, most self-cleaning ovens has also the option of grill, something like grill or broil, so they have an element of fire inside of the oven. The Alter Rebbe wants you should have an element inside of the oven. When it comes to a regular stove, you cannot kasher it for Pesach, because a regular stove, the highest it gets is, I would say, 550, maybe 6. It's not libach gumar, and you need libn gumar. So a regular oven, you should make a good cycle, put it on for clean it good, put it on for an hour on the highest level, and you only use it with an insert. Today's day, it's already 50 years old. You could buy an insert. It's like a box, a balloon in a box, and only through that you could use. And if you don't find such a box, you don't use your oven for Pesach. So again, a self-cleaning oven, you could kasher, libn, and not self-cleaning, you cannot. Now, somebody called me today, is there any chimra that even if you have a self-cleaning oven, you should have a Pesach oven? I said yes. If you have the place and you can buy one, yes. It's a big chimra. It's a nice chimra, because some minority of person will say that you cannot kasher a self-cleaning oven, but again, majority holds that you could, and I feel also like this, a paskin like this. But if you could buy a separate one, it says I have no issue of place, so it says if you could buy one. But if you don't have an issue, if you have an issue, you could use it if you make it well. Now, when you come to stove tops, even if the electric one, if you clean it well and you put it on for 2 hours, and after you put it on, you unplug it, and you pour hot water on it, with the even malibim, you can also use it on Pesach, because it went through a good kashen, and also that will be now glass ones. Again, if you could buy one, another new one, that's a very smart chomer. It's a kedai to invest into a glass one, into a other Pesach stovetop if you have a glass one. But if you cannot find, which is machzach, in places where you have to have only zechiches, then you could put it on for 2 hours, but you could only use it covered. That means if you have a blech, only through that you should use. Don't use aluminum foil because it's dangerous. If you have a blech, then you could use it on Pesach. The most important thing I want to mention is that you have to cover the hood above of the stovetop. The hood is full of fat, full of chumas mamash. We went once to the Poconos, a goyish house, and we kashed the kitchen. We wanted to be kashed for chimra, if you will want to use it. And we saw constantly, when the fire was on, it's fatty. Until we realized that since the heat was working, it diluted the fat from the hood and it came down. So the hood has to be covered twice very well if you use that stovetop. Because if not, you can have a serious problem of chumas. A plot for Shabbos, a plata, that means a Shabbos plate, you clean it very well and you burn it for 2 hours and then you cover it also with silver foil and you're good to go. A dishwasher, it's not kedai to kasher for Pesach. If you have a aluminum one, you could kasher it by cleaning it very, very well from the end for everything, and then making a cycle. But before you make a cycle, you should put in a even malibim. That means the water should be really hot. But again, it's not recommended to use a chumas dishwasher. And the same will go to a microwave. You don't use a chumas microwave or convection oven, which you use all year round for chumas for Pesach. Tablecloths, you could use the chumazige tablecloth, but the Steitchen in Chalkianki and andere Poiskem, that's Kedoshim minig Yisrael that you have Pesach tablecloths. Although mitzad halucha you could use the chumazige, but that's the minig Yisrael that you could use. You have special for Pesach, and I would say you should also do the same thing to dish towels. Regular towels you can use the regular year, all year round, but dish towels it is kedai that you should have separate because always get sticky food over there, not necessarily it comes out. One final thing I want to mention is people who have braces or fillings, they should make sure 24 hours before the Sof Zman Achilas Chumatz they should not eat hot Chumatz, and then before Sof Zman Achilas Chumatz they should rinse their mouth with hot water as much as they can take. Don't take from the hot kettle and drink it because you get burned. As much as you can take, because the metal gets a blear. Teeth, we have no problem. Teeth steigt in the poiskem does not belaya. So you can eat the same teeth, hummus and hot Pesach stuff. But the metal in it is basil and it belaya, and therefore you should kasher it by not eating 24 hours hummus, and then as much as possible you could use, you could tolerate, then you should kasher your teeth. And kedai not to ruin your Pesach, not to eat soup or any food which is really yatzal das boy. That's more or less the nekidas which I want to bring up for the nekida. One more thing I want to say, that before you kasher, I said you shouldn't use this thing 24 hours. It is a machlokas achronim ugnavurum tichak Yankov if you shouldn't use it hot chumas, or you shouldn't use it hot water at all. And we are machbar, like the Mugnavrum, that even plain hot water you shouldn't use. That means if you want to kasher your sink or your table, do not use it 24 hours with anything hot, even hot water. One final thing, the Nushim Tzidkunias, which want to use their jewelry on Pesach, it's kedai to clean it good and dip it in also in the kasher on top, because she constantly washes dishes with that. She constantly come across with hummus stuff, and therefore it's kedai to kasher. And also the same thing will go, it's a chimra, it's not la locha, that the candelabra which is on the table all year round, you dip in at least the feet, you dip into that water in order you should be able to put it on the Pesach table. But in any way, it's not like a chila, because the poskim write, the Alter Rebbe brings it down that you should put all the silverware which you can on the table, even if it belongs to a goy and you have it only for a mashkin. So we see that you don't need to kasher all these things, but that's a minig Yisrael that you try to kasher if it's possible. Okay, is there any questions till now which you want to address?
Abraham, if anybody has a question, just unmute yourself and just one at a time. Guys.
I have a question. Could you describe a little the process of koshering a metal sink? Like, do you mean, you said do you fill it up with water?
Oh, there is two ways. Yeah, there's two ways how to do it. There's two ways how to do it. One way is what you mentioned, which I didn't mention now. But I'll tell you why I didn't mention it now. I used to say this, that you should kasher, the easiest way is to kasher it. You close the drain, you clean it, you don't use it 24 hours, you close the drain, and then you fill it up with hot water, as hot as possible from the boiler. Once it's filled up all the way till the top, you throw in 2 stones and it overflows, and the stones boils the water, should be clearish, and that should be fine. This was I used to say till last year, but last year I say you could do it only if you know what kind of boiler, because a plumber told me that the newer boilers, they make limits how hot the water could be. Once upon a time, the boiler you could make the boiler should be very hot. Mamash 220 or even more, 212 and even more. But they say lately the new boilers, there's some kind of the government that made some kind of rules that you cannot make it very hot because people get burned. So then the hot water when you pour it into the sink is not hot enough. That when you put in a stone or two, it should become mala babiyas. Now, if you have 5-6 stones, then for sure it would help, because the stones will boil the water. But nobody has that much of stones, and it's a big hassle to have all of them should be hot. So therefore I stopped saying this kind of, because I don't know which boiler it is. Everything you have to consider the Matthias. So therefore, I recommend to take the pitcher from Ner Mitzvah with a stone, and then you start from the bottom, you pour it on the stone, when the stone is right near the floor of the sink, you pour it all 4 sides and in the middle, then you go up the walls, slowly but surely, you go up one wall, another wall, all over, and that is the way how you kasher it, because since you pour it from a kli rishon, it's like iri, but you have the stone right next to the wall, that will basically keep it warm like a kli rishon. That's why I mentioned this one, because I think today's day that's more manageable and more preferable. Is it clear?
Sorry, someone could also go over with a blowtorch, right?
What do you say?
Are you able to go over the sink with a blowtorch also if it's metal?
The halacha is anything which you could use, it's enough to make hagala, then you could make the libn kal. A blowtorch is a libn kal, except if you use it very long. But the halacha is a thing which you want to have, it's enough to have hagala. If you want to go one grade up and use libn kal, it's enough. So if you want to go with a blowtorch, yes, you could go through with a blowtorch. How do you know it's libn? When basically the other side gets hot. That means when the other side, the back side, will be, as I mentioned before, 160, 165, you know that's libn kal. That means you have to make sure it should become inside more than this, because we want outside should be that hot. So again, if you keep it long and it gets really hot, that will be also considered libn kal, and that's good enough, yes.
Okay.
But you should be careful not to make a hole in the sink.
Yes, exactly.
The blowtorch.
All these things when you do, you have to make sure how to do it, because for instance, somebody called me today regarding kashering a commercial oven. I said the commercial oven, the halacha is the same, but it's the Matthias is different. And you have to have a mimcha who tell you how to do it, when to do it, how to dismantle it's not a self-cleaning oven, so how to dismantle the thermostat. I won't advise you, because you have to have somebody who knows this kind of, it's a profession which the OU, the OK, Rabbi Hanoka from the OK, other Anash have mimchishkeit. So you have to always know when you do these things, you shouldn't kill your stove oven, or you shouldn't kill, as this just mentioned, you shouldn't kill your sink. What should one do about the silicone sealing on the sink? I'm sure you think about the silicone which is around the sink. You just clean it very well. You just clean it, and again, once you kasher it, hot water will pour on top of it, and it's cleaned well. You have no issue, because you have to understand their place is more a chimra of maybe something fell on top, because we know the machaber pastors that you go buser off tashmisha, you go according to the majority of tashmish, that if majority was only with kli shiny, even though once in a while you use the kadishin, you could cash with the kli shiny, but the Ramo disagrees, and we pass like that. So therefore we could you could clean it good and pour hot water on it with a stone, and it should be good. I just want to mention another question which somebody asked me during the day regarding coffee. Could you use Taster's Choice instant coffee without the OUP? And the answer is no, you cannot. The reason is why. Not because of he said that you make it in the same facility of the flavors. That could also be a problem, but not that's the main problem. The main problem is that when you open a jar of Taster's Choice coffee or other coffees, there is an aroma which comes out which has a very good taste, and it's made to that you drink a coffee. That taste, that aroma comes from kidneys. And therefore, there is a special run by the Velover roof from Borough Park. He makes a special run by Taster's Choice without that kidneys, and that's why when you open it, you don't have that aroma. So therefore, you cannot take taste the shoys without an OUP, because then you're going into a problem of kidneys, and we don't eat kidneys. We don't need to sell kidneys, but we don't eat kidneys. Question: can the Rebbe's mashke be sold? The Rebbe himself answered this question that you don't sell. That the Sachen was hot from the Rebbe, you don't sell. There's a famous sikh of the Rebbe regarding of the tikelach which they got from the Tzemach Tzedek, all famous sikh. And the Rebbe brings there a Rigsavoisam, which the Rigsavoisam says that the Yidden who has a challah from the Yid base challahs from the Polish tzaddikim, they have 12 challahs, small tiny challahs, when they make shalashidas, and they give it out for the chsidim, and people save it. So he has a question if you could sell it for the goy, and the Rebbe brings it down that we don't sell Rebbe's in Yonam for a goy. So therefore, the minik Chabad is we don't sell the Rebbe's mashke, we drink it before Pesach. And if you want to have more from the Rebbe's mashke, there's a goy which got from the Rebbe a bottle. I don't remember now his name, but everybody in Corona knows his name. And you could, after Pesach, it's his, and after Pesach he could give you a drop, and then you could have more from the Rebbe's mashke, but you don't sell mashke of the Rebbe. Question: if one burns the grates while covering for 20 minutes on a high fire, does that also kasher the stovetop? No, it doesn't kasher the stovetop. Stovetop has to be covered. Only the grates get covered. The fire touches that. The stovetop does not get kasher by that.
Rabbi Oberlander, why would that not kasher the stovetop if it's covered and the temperature underneath gets high enough? It's close to the fire.
Because usually the stovetop will not get that hot. You have the grades, which is 2 inches, 3 inches. How is the grades? And even if you have that, it won't get. If Matthias it gets Libun Gumar. Even Libun Kal is enough. Then okay, but I don't think it will help that much. If you check it, if a person is a mimch and you can check it and open it and see it becomes the downside, which is in the bottom, will get 165 degrees, then it is considered it was kasher, and I would still prefer to cover it, as I mentioned before, by the stove, by the countertops. Always kedai to cover it with something, because a chimra of a tzemach tzedek, which he writes in his tshuva, which I don't know for sure he goes 100% la'alocha that, but he wants to say that maybe if a noodle which is dry falls on a table or a challah, that could consider maybe alwaish mamash, and that maybe you need limon gumar. Now the poskim do not bring this such thing la'alocha, and even the tzemach I'm not sure. So therefore I prefer you cover it. But again, if it will be in such a way that you think and you check it out, and it gets hot all the way, then you don't need to cover it. But again, the Matthias what it is.
Putting the grates into the self-cleaning oven.
The what?
The grates from the stovetop into the self-cleaning
Yes,
oven.
if you do that, you put it in, that will be fine. That should be good. That should be good enough. How long should I leave the stone on the fire to get hot enough? And how long does it stay hot before putting it back on the fire? It should be on the fire, I would say, 3/4 an hour till an hour. It should get once very good, and it stays hot quite long. I would say you could kasher with that stove a table for sure, and some countertops. Then you put it back on the fire, and then you don't need to put it back on the fire for a whole hour also, because it is still hot. It is only cooled down a little bit. So therefore, you put it back 20 minutes, a half an hour, and that should substitute enough for using it again. What are our prenatal vitamins? Again, when it comes to vitamins, any vitamins which you don't need to take, it is just lachazik mizgur, as they say. Then you should. I'm talking when it's kidneys. When it's chametz, you don't take it at all. Vitamins. But if it is kidneys, if it is a thing which you have to take, some people will have to take in order to have milk. Some people will have to take in order they have some kind of allergic things and you have to take it, then you could be lenient and use it. But when it comes to things which you don't need to have, you don't need to take, then you don't take it. Is an iron good enough placement for the stone? Yes, an iron is same good as a stone. You don't need to have a stone, it's good also iron. And it's in a way it's a little bit easier to get hot. It gets hot faster than the stone. So you could use iron too, yes. Again, just to mention, it's probably from now till after till Pesach you can have more questions which comes up during the days. I'm sure by now you all know my phone number, you know my WhatsApp, which that's the most preferred WhatsApp, because the phone I'm not always available. You can always write, and we'll try to answer people when they have questions. Let's see, any else questions? Okay, so you don't have. So, what?
So what's the process with an iron?
With an iron? The process with an iron is, in a way, you talk about iron which you ironed clothing. That's a thing which I think is much better for a table or a countertop. The process over there is you take piping hot water, you pour it on top of the table all over, and then you take the iron. So don't forget to unplug it because push is dangerous. If you're gonna push it dangerous, unplug it, and then when it's hot, you go through on the water on top all the way, and this is how it gets kosher, because the hot water gets hot through the metal which is on the iron, and that's also even better in a way for re-koshering again for something else, because when you plug it in, it gets much faster hot again. Metal gets much faster hot than a stone. So therefore, yes, you could take. It's not like the stone which you pour the water on the stone, which is right next to the table. It is after you pour the water. For a sink, it's not practical, by the way. A sink, iron is not practical. It is only on a flat surface. Countertops, tables, then you could just go through that place and it becomes hot.
Is the iron good for a large surface? If you have a very large counter, you unplug the iron and do the whole counter, or you have to do a little bit and then plug it back in?
The truth is, I don't know, you have to check it out how long it stays hot. I would say that the Noshim Tzidkunias will be able to answer this question much faster. How long after you unplug it, it will stay hot? If it stays a longer time hot, then you could use it longer time. Stone keeps the hotness more than a metal, but metal gets hot faster.
But I'm asking, so we don't say that the water is cooling off the iron, meaning if I could do the whole counter in 30 seconds, the iron is still...
The iron is still good, yes. Yes. Question, do all sides of the sink need really to be covered, or is it mainly the bottom of the sink anyway? What do you mean? If you kosher it, all sides has to be koshered, and if you cannot kosher it, you have to put an insert which is basically also covered all sides. So I don't understand the question. Of course, every side has to be koshered with a stone, because you never know what fell, where it fell. Even the bottom is much more chumar, but even the sides also you have to make sure it gets kashed. Also handles, let me just fill in a couple of more things. Also handles of a pot should be cleaned very well and be kashed, because over there you could have chumas could be on the handles too. So therefore, the place where it gets connected to the pot, you might have problems. You might have to be very well cleaned. Most of the time I say that you don't need to dismantle things. That means when you have chairs, you don't need to unscrew the bottom of the chair when you sit, to clean it. You clean it as much as you can, and that's about it. But over here, when you're talking about a pot, if you want to use this pot, which you use for chumas, you should dismantle the handle and clean it very well, because over there could be mamash chumatz. And you have to remember, when you come to kashan, it has to be 100% clean. Has to be clean, because the place where it's not clean is there's no hagula doesn't work. So that's why the poskim say, if you have let's say a piece, you have a pot which has grooves, and you cannot clean it, then you should take with fire, because a libn could help, and that's enough libn kal. But you have to make sure it's clean. Now, one thing you have to remember: stains, that's not chomas. So if you cleaned it very well, you used easy of whatever you used, and you still have a stain, that's not chomas, and you can use it like this. I'm talking about poshet chomas be'en. If it has it got discolored of something, that's not chomas. Color is not a chomas. And also, as I mentioned, you have to make sure that the water should constantly be hot, because it's almost impossible to kasher a couple of kelam without it should relax before it stops boiling. So you have to make sure to look, and once it stops boiling, you don't have any bubbles. Now, bubbles do not have to be bubbles like the children have play with the bubbles. It has to be tiny bubbles. That's mala rasichas already, and that's good enough. If you have a kela which you want to kasher, and it's very large, you cannot dip it into a pot. You could kasher it two sides. That means you can kasher one side first, and the other side the other side afterwards. It's not like a mikveh, which if you toivel a kela, and even a tiny piece is not covered with the water, it's not toivelled. By hagala, you have to take out the blias. So if you cannot put in that pot or whatever it is into another pot, so you can kasher it twice. One side, one half, another half. Or there's another way how to kasher a big pot, which is basically filling it up with hot water and till the top and letting it overflow after, when it's still on the fire, it's burning. Since it's full till the top, the water expands and it overflows. That's also a way how to kasher a big keli. Another thing is important thing to note. Ner mitzvah made does a very beautiful thing. A basket. One of the package is a basket, which you put it into the pot, and over there you put in all the utensils, whatever. But you have to remember, when it comes to hagula, one kli cannot touch the other kli. That means the utensils, you have to make sure it doesn't touch. So if you want to kasher more than one, put it side by side and make sure to shake it in order the water should come all over. Because the Nishchanor state that kailam, which one kaila touches another kaila, the place where he touches does not help the hagola. After the kashering, the minig is you put it into hot water, or you pour it cold water, and that's the minig. It's not makiv la'alocha, but that's the minig that you do. You pour cold water on top of it. Okay, is there anything else which someone wants to bring up? Can one rely on a shiksa if you tell her to clean all spices of food? Spices of food? Again, as I mentioned before, you should check over a little bit, because they might check on cleanliness, not necessarily check for chumutz. I have a person who comes down to me. He cleans my car, and he makes it beautiful. But always when I make b'dikas chumutz, which you remember, you have to make b'dikas chumutz in your car if you don't sell it, I always find a tiny piece of pretzel or something, because whenever it's not out on the surface, you don't see it. It's good enough for him. He wants to have a car to be clean. Therefore, in my opinion, if a person buys a harora a chivanit, if a person goes into a Jewish-owned car rental and he rents a car, you might have to at least in Chalamoid look it over, that you shouldn't, if there is any chumas over there, because even if a person did not make b'dikas chumas before Pesach, and it comes into an apartment, he has to make b'dikas chumas in Pesach. Same thing as you rent a car. So what I want to bring out, that they clean very nice, but not necessarily for Pesach. So it's kedai to go over. Look over. She should clean everything, but look over if she had in mind make chumatz or just cleanliness.
What if you can't there's comments in the car, that you can't get it. It's in the track system where the seats go back and forth.
Oh, this is what I mentioned before. Any place where you see chomutz and you cannot get to it, as I mentioned before, under the upholstery of a chair, under a radiator, or even under a refrigerator and a freezer. You don't have to schlep out the freezer. You clean it as much as you can, and that's enough. Since you are not going to have access to it Pesach Hoch, the whole Chash is Shemi, you're going to come, you make Kol Chamiru. So you use Mavach. It's only you can come Pesach to, maybe you come eat it, you have no access to it. Now a refrigerator and a freezer, you don't have to schlep out to clean. But if you did schlep it out and clean it, you have to make B'dikas Chumetz already. So you should make sure B'dikas Chumetz does not have to be the night of B'dikas Chumetz. You could do it every night before, when it's dark, with a lech, without a bracha kimiven. And that's why it's always a good idea, which I do in my house. Baruch Hashem, I have a lot of square feet. I start a couple of rooms before Pesach, a day or two before B'dikas Chumetz, without a bracha. And then we leave something for the live B'dikas Chumetz. And live B'dikas Chumetz, you make a bracha, and you do the rest of it. So anything which, but you don't need to push away the stove. So going back to your question, even if you see it, you don't have to do anything. It is kedai if you can, pour on it a little bit of bleach or something to be poigam. But that's also only a chimra. But again, you don't need to take it out.
Yeah. Abalarlander, thank you so much for giving us your time and for answering all our questions and giving a beautiful share, and to many, many more.
Okay, and Hashem shall help. We should have a chag kosher with samayach and a simcha digiyanta. We have to remember one thing, a very important note I want to bring out. As there's a famous joke that dust is not chometz and your children are not the korban Pesach. Don't make that the children will feel Pesach is a boogeyman and have trauma of Pesach. There are children, when they grow up, Pesach is a trauma. Do as according to halacha, even we're doing much more than what the halacha asks us. Don't overkill your children. Do mehider as Yisroel Kedoshim, but remember that it's not the time for spring cleaning to make the chandelier if you cannot do it, if it's too hard for you. And I'm talking especially for the Roshim Tzidkunis, because basically they do the most of the work, and also they are basically and then they're always afraid maybe we didn't do enough. That's why I wanted to go over to know what we need to, what we don't need to do. We shouldn't overdo it, because it's on the cheshbon of the Simchas Yontav, it's on the cheshbon of our children. And we should all have a chag kosher v'samayach, a freiliche Yontav.
Thank you, Abalarlander.
I see one more question, I want to answer it. How about moving this forum shafar to clean? You don't need to move it. Only if you're going to move it on Pesach, then you need to move it before Pesach. If it stays here for the next 10 years, you don't need to move it. You clean it as much as you can and finish. You don't do anything more than that. Thank you and good night.